Hello YouTube, welcome to Madrid Royale. It's a pleasure to have you guys back checking in, and today we're going to be talking about a subject that has just recently surfaced. Real Madrid just brought back Mariano Diaz, the Dominican Spanish powerhouse, back from Lyon, and for many of you this isn't a very underwhelming signing considering all the other names that were being brought up to replace Benzema, or at least be the substitute for Benzema. That being Icardi, there was talks of Harry Kane, so a lot of people aren't really impressed by this signing considering all the other names being thrown around. That being said, guys, I want to kind of break down and talk about who should actually start, who is better for this, because for many of you, Mariano is still a bit unfamiliar, and I've watched this guy with Lyon, and he is, to be said, very impressive. He does have a lot of qualities for a pure number 9. I want to go over with you guys a few traits on Mariano Diaz and what Benzema brings to the table and who ultimately should start and have that top spot. So first off, guys, I want to talk about Mariano, and what I can totally tell, and if anybody has watched him before, he is one of the most raw players you will ever see. He will give 100% every single game, from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. He has a third lung, I swear. He just never gets tired, and you can totally see him overwhelming defenders and other opposition. So that is one key element for this guy. Another good ability that Mariano has is that he's worked with a lot of these other Castilla players. So he was brought up with some of these players like Dani Carvajal, Borja Mayoral. So he is very familiar with some of these players already. So maybe going out for a Harry Kane or Icardi wasn't going to be the easiest solution in terms of them settling in at Real Madrid, which in many cases can be a very long and grueling task. So on top of that, you can kind of understand the place that Mariano will have currently. He knows his place. It seems him being young and unproven at times, he for sure will be complacent with being the second tier striker, that being Benzema being the first tier striker starting 11. So that is a definite bonus, because when you sign a big name player, they're not going to want to be on the bench, as we see Courtois so unhappy on the bench. And lastly, guys, his fearlessness with the ball and positionally is just second to none. When I watched this guy play in Lyon or in the preseason a few years ago with Real Madrid, what is most impressive isn't necessarily his skill, it's his willingness and fearlessness to just dominate the top half. He will just run at the defenders. He will tackle and fight for every ball. He goes in 110% when it comes to tackles, which can be a little troublesome because it does seem like he hasn't matured and he hasn't perfected his tackling as a striker, which some might say is a very underappreciated attribute that a striker can have. One of the best examples I've ever seen was Carlos Tevez and, I hate to say it, but Luis Suarez from Barcelona. These two players are not the tallest, but just with their speed and their aggressiveness, they can really make a goalie or a defender just stumble upon the ball, and they just wreak havoc when that person fumbles the ball. So considering all these good things and bad things, Mariano still is a unproven talent, and this is his chance and his mark, and especially now that we've just heard news that he's going to be adopting the number 7, the Ronaldo number. Well, it's a big number for Real Madrid in general, considering Raul had it. I mean, he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders at this time, but I feel like he is a perfect player to carry this because he is so fearless that he will more than likely embody this type of goal scorer or leadership role, as we've seen him help us come back from defeats in the season with Zidane a few years ago. And those are some special details about Mariano. But now I want to talk about what Benzema brings to the table. And there's been a lot of hate towards Benzema due to his previous seasons not being so great, not scoring too much, but we can't deny his influence with Ronaldo and Bale and everybody else. And I want to talk to you guys about what he can actually do and what he's actually doing for this new squad that Lopetegui's guiding. So first off, I want to talk about how he developed this new role under this Cristiano Ronaldo era. He became like this type of glue for Bale and Isco and Marcelo to just kind of pacify their type of abilities. He was there to give him the 1-2, be the wall for a lot of these plays. And although he wasn't the one shooting, he wasn't the one scoring most of the time, if at all, he was definitely involved, and that's something that we can't undermine. And we got to remember his age. He's obviously 30, 31 years old. He's definitely on the older spectrum of things. So his knowledge and his ability to play in big games and big teams will be super vital this season. Due to Lopetegui being new, a lot of the players are under a new style. So him being there will definitely encourage a lot of these young, unproven talent to go out and do the best they can. And of course, we have to talk about his current form is very impressive. It's a complete polar opposite to what we saw the seasons before, where instead of being the guy to tap it in, he was the guy given the pass. He was the guy feeding the 1-2, like I was mentioning earlier. But now we're actually seeing him finish these opportunities. And we got to encourage this streak because he definitely has some juice in him. He's not very old, and his body, if you guys have noticed, he's been getting slimmer and leaner throughout every single year. So he's staying on top of that. We all know how devastating him not getting called up to the France national team means to him. So he's definitely trying to stay on top of his game, trying to improve in any way possible to stay at the top world-class form that he is. So another thing I can definitely say is that Lopetegui's style of this possession-based football definitely has him as an important key role for the attack. He has great ball control, and at times going forward may seem a little iffy for him, but in general, in tight spaces, he can definitely take on 1 to 2 players, as we've seen in finals versus Atletico Madrid. And this is something that Lopetegui is definitely trying to include for Bale, Asensio, and ultimately his unselfish characteristics to feed a ball. He's a very unselfish attacker, as many describe him. So that is super important for Lopetegui. So without a doubt, Benzema's inclusion in this new Real Madrid, this new Lopetegui style of possession-based football, has his name written all over it. So we got just a few years with this guy, El Gato Benzema. So we got to squeeze the juice out of him as much as we can because he is a top-tier striker. We've seen it with Leon. Curiously enough, that's where Mariano's coming from, Leon. But he is an embodiment of what the modern striker requires nowadays. So you can't just be this Ruud van Nistelrooy who just knocks everything in. You got to actually set up the play. You've got to positionally be very aware of where you're at tactically. You got to hound the defenders. You've got to do so much more than just put the ball in the back of the net. And as we've seen with Lopetegui's Spain side, he prefers playing Rodrigo or Iago Aspas, a person who's not physically demanding, but a person who can control the ball and feed off other players, and that's what Benzema does. So we can't also forget that he's in the top 10 Champions League top scorers, which is incredible. That is something very, very hard considering how old this tournament is, and Karim Benzema is in there. So that definitely needs to stand for something for some of you. And considering all these great points I've made about Benzema and Mariano, there is a winner here, guys. And I think that for now, Benzema needs to be undoubtedly the starter 11, in the starting 11 for Real Madrid, because of his experience and his abilities to complement Bale and Asensio. This is something we need to encourage and definitely flourish on. But do not undermine Mariano's presence and his abilities. He is a wrecking ball, a human wrecking ball, and I just can't wait to see him wreck his way into the starting lineup in the near future. So anyways, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and please leave your opinions on who you think should start for Real Madrid in the new season. And in general, guys, do you guys think that Mariano will succeed? Do you guys see him scoring all these bangers, or do you guys kind of see him having a mediocre, maybe even flop type of season? Leave your comments. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Leave your comments down below. Like and subscribe to my channel. This is going to help me immensely and tremendously in so many ways. It will be vastly appreciated. So thank you all, and a la Madrid.